Jiedic Agus Focha. Welcome to another episode of Craic on the Coast and AOH podcast, where Irish culture, community, and conversation meet the salty breeze of the South Shore. I'm your host, Michael Schilling, and with my usual co-host, Sean, out of town for work, joining me in the co-pilot seat today is what should be a familiar voice at this point, Greg Shanahan. Greg, how's the crack?
The crack is mighty, Michael. Always happy to be back, especially when we get to shine a light on what keeps our Irish-American community connected, both to each other and to the story of Ireland itself.
You said it. We've got a full slate today on the show. We'll look ahead to two important events coming up for the Father John Murphy Division, our annual Easter Rising Commemoration, and our future Hibernian Walk for Hunger that will actually take place in Ireland. Then we'll welcome Sarah Stanton, owner of the Cara Travel Group, to talk about travel, heritage, and that first unforgettable trip to the Emerald Isle. And we'll wrap it up with some heartfelt and maybe hilarious stories as we bid farewell to a beloved local landmark, Paddy Barry's Pub in Quincy. So we'll start with the upcoming Easter Rising Commemoration. It's Sunday, April 27th. Each year we gather as a division and as a community to remember the men and women who rose up in 1916, not just as a historical moment, but as a living reminder of the cost of freedom.
So true, Michael. The Easter Rising wasn't just a rebellion, it was an act of hope. Just over 1,200 rebels, poets, teachers, farmers, most of all dreamers, took on the might of the British Empire with little more than conviction and courage.
That's right. And although the rising itself lasted just 6 days before being crushed, it changed everything. The executions of the leaders turned public opinion, and from those ashes rose the Irish War of Independence and eventually a free state.
Every year when we read the proclamation of the Irish Republic, and the pipes sound and the names of the fallen are spoken aloud, you feel that the thread of history tightening just a bit. It reminds you that freedom is never free. It also reminds you of how important it is for we as Irish Americans to continue to remind people year after year of that sacrifice.
Yeah, and like we talked about on last show, I'm excited for the program. You know, it's songs and stories. It's not just a bunch of politicians getting up and talking about how happy they are to be there. We have some interesting people that are going to come in and perform. We have people that are going to read poems and recitations that not only inspired the Rising, but also were inspired by the Rising itself. So I'm excited, and I feel like we're going to have a good turnout like we usually do.
It's going to be a great day. It always is. And, I'll try not to take your politician remark personally. But no, I think it's important to remember that, one of the things that gets better and better every year is the programming that goes on. And I'm really excited to see about this year. Last year was fantastic when we had the speaking group of women in the rebellion. And I think that this year we're even going to outdo ourselves. So looking forward to a great event and looking forward to even bigger and bigger crowds.
Yeah. And we're also excited because we have a full slate of sponsors. We've been very fortunate that we've put the call out and we've received sponsorships from a lot of the local staples. Bridget's Irish shop is a sponsor. We also have the new kids on the block, Kevin and Alicia Clancy, who run the Galway Girl Irish shop in Duxbury.
Who also sponsored the South Shore Irish Heritage Trail event.
That's correct.
It's just last week.
Yep. We have a couple locals, Hatherley Welding, who's been in Scituate for a really long time, and a mutual friend of myself and Greg's.
My brother from another mother.
they're sponsoring as well. And then, as usual, we have Brian Houlihan that runs Tinker Son and Bia and a bunch of other establishments all over the South Shore. Very, very active and very supportive of not just our organization, but also the South Shore Irish Heritage Trail. That's great. And then we have our gold sponsor for the event, which is the Cara Travel Group, which Sarah Stanton, who is the owner and operator, is here with us today. And we'd like to introduce her.
Thank you very much, Michael. And Greg, it's great to be here and just talk about my favorite subject, everything Irish for sure. As you can tell, I've got a slight accent because I'm originally from County Mayo and living out here now for over 30 years. So it's great to be here.
Yeah, we're super excited. It's the first time that we've ever partnered up with Cara for an event such as this. Sarah did not take long to respond at all. Once I asked, she responded in kind and said she would love to help us out and help support the event. A mutual friend of ours, Declan Hooton, That's where I got the contact from. I will totally plug him on that one. But no, it's great that I feel, and Greg and I have had this conversation that the South Shore and just overall in general, it's always been Irish, but I feel like we've hit kind of a renaissance where there's a lot of excitement. It feels like there's a new group every year and everybody has their own twist on what they're supporting, what they're trying to achieve. And there's a lot of support coming from the overall community to kind of prop those organizations and those groups up. And it's really great. It really is.
It's fantastic. And I think, having lived here in this area for actually 20 something years, this is like the home away from home, really, this part of the country, because even my neighbors, you'll often hear them speaking Irish on the back deck. I mean, where do you hear that,
Right.
in the US? And everybody that I know either has been to Ireland or wants to go to Ireland or wants to, and I always tell people, even if you say you don't have Irish heritage, I promise you, by the time you get back, you're definitely going to feel Irish, whether you have it in you or not.
Sure. Oh, I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. So we'll get into just a couple of questions about the travel group itself. So you've been here over 20 years. When did you start Cara Travel?
I actually started about 13 years ago. It was funny. I had worked in the travel business for quite a while and I came out here on a visa. I got a Morrison visa. So literally I got a visa in a lottery to come to the United States 30 years ago. And you filled in your name, your address, I think maybe your date of birth, and they literally pulled you out of a hat. So I thought, with that, I have to come. And then when I got here at the time, they had to make sure you didn't have TB. So I had to go for my x-rays in Dublin. And I remember being on the plane with my x-rays going, I can't bend them because I might think I have it, So I got here and that's kind of how it all started. Worked in the travel business for a while and then decided I wanted to kind of do my own travel, mostly because I'm obviously very passionate about what I do. And to bring everybody home to Ireland with me or for me is a big deal. I want them to visit my Ireland and know about it. And everybody has different ways, whether you're our local rugby team from Marshfield who are leaving in a few weeks to learn all about rugby and play with some teams there, or you're somebody who wants to play music like Declan and Devery. My goodness, now that's a trip. Oh my God.
I've heard
pretty wild.
about it.
Pretty wild. But fantastic. Or you're just a family heritage group or whatever it may be. There's something for everybody. So it's a labor of love for me.
That's a great story. Coming here, the story of coming here. That's a great story.
I think if I could just drop in, another great story is just how generous you are in the community here. I mean, it's not unusual to hear about you sponsoring an event. When Michael told you were jumping in and sponsoring us, I was so pleased, but I wasn't surprised at all because it seems like your brand goes on everything. That's incredible to be here, part of the community, but also be so committed to sending people back and and getting people in touch with their roots.
Thank you. That means a lot to me too. Like as you probably do know, Cara means friend in Irish. So the reason I started it was, I also grew up on Lough Cara in the west of Ireland in County Mayo. So that kind of had something to do with it. But it's, got friends, let's travel, So for me, that's why I started it. And there's been so many amazing people in the community, so many good causes. But I just don't want to be a business about, obviously every business wants to make money and survive. But it's all about community. That's how in Ireland, all these smaller rural communities survive because everybody came together and supported each other. And I think that's what's really important. So I'm always happy to. I can't support everything, but I do my best.
It's so well said though. And Michael alluded to it earlier in the podcast about all the new groups and events that are going on every year. None of this would happen without the support that they all receive from businesses and the politicians, Michael. And,
I know.
Just regular folks. I mean, we're all really doing it together, and that's the other thing that kind of makes this resurgence to me so special. And I'm so proud to be a part of it, and can't wait to see how it grows. So it's also podcasts like this one, spreading the rumor.
I know we're on episode 4.
I feel like I'm a mini celebrity every time I turn around. Someone says, "Hey, I saw you on the podcast." I said, "Don't you know that's Mike's podcast? Are you calling him? He owns it. Are you calling him to sell him?" But no, it's been great, and it's ongoing, and up the Irish, sure.
Yeah. So everybody always has their own personal story, their own background, everything else, and that might guide how they travel and the type of trip that they take. But from your experience and everything else, is there, for someone like Greg, and we're going to out him right now, Greg is a great guy. Greg is very proud of his Irish heritage. Greg has yet to go. And
Greg is terrified of flying.
Well, Greg hasn't lived yet. He will soon.
Fair enough.
But for someone like Greg, who, is very in tune with his heritage, knows a lot of his history and everything else, what is that perfect first trip? Or is there
Honestly,
one?
I don't really think there is the perfect trip. I think it's just the trip. I mean, I know from clients and people have traveled with me for years, and like Greg, have not had a chance, whatever the reason being. And when they get there, what they respond back to me is that just the minute they stood on the ground, the minute they went to the county where their family heritage was from, they felt at home. Like they really felt it. Like it was touched them deeply, and it changed them. So if you have the Irish heritage, and even if you don't, but they really did feel like, oh my God, I'm at home. I found something. This is the thing I've been missing. And you identify so much because growing up here, we're very lucky in this part of the country because we have the music and the culture, and you meet lots of Irish people. So then when you go to Ireland, it's kind of like you already know the inside scoop before you get there.
Sure.
And you automatically feel at home. So I think that's the big thing, is just that first arriving and coming home.
Now, another question I would have, and this is kind of a overarching question, it might even kind of be really in depth, is that I feel like the Irish might be one of the few cultures that is actually like that. It might be because of in a lot of ways, it was forced immigration based upon what was going on there. So it might be a situation where, like my grandmother, emigrated here in the 50s, and it wasn't necessarily out of choice. It was because her parents took her and her other 5 siblings and said, there's nothing for you here. So you all have to go. And they were all sent to different parts of the world. I mean, she was sent to Boston. My Aunt Mary was sent to New York. I had another aunt that was sent to London. My uncle ended up being an engineer in Egypt. Like they were all sent and scattered all over the world. And whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, my grandmother was the only one who didn't go back. Everybody else eventually made their way back. So is it because of that we have, as Irish Americans, or even Irish all over the world, have an affinity for going back and really retracing the roots?
Yeah, I think it could be that. I also feel when a lot of people left years ago, even including myself, which is only 30 years ago, it was always you were looking for that better life. Everybody told you that, you go away and to find that something that you couldn't find in Ireland, whether it was a job or money, success, that, there was just these great things beyond our shores because Ireland at that time wasn't able to deliver it. Whereas I think now it's more than able to deliver it. It's come a long way.
I would agree with that.
It's a different place now. Now there's less immigration out of Ireland than there used to be years ago, and the population is growing like crazy. But I do think that when people went away, especially years ago, like grandparents, who like say your grandparents or anybody that came out, some of them never did go back. Some weren't ever able to go back, and many were afraid to go back because part of it, I know my granduncle, Jim, he went to Pennsylvania and he came home to Ireland once. And when he told his family this, that when he went back to County Mayo, the family were still so poor. Like, now, maybe poor in wealth, but not necessarily. I will never say poor in spirit because
Right.
Irish people are just not. But he had such a great life in the US. He actually felt guilty that he had it, but he couldn't really do much about it. He went home, he saw them, but he never came back for that reason.
Wow.
Yeah, because he felt here he was living the great life in the United States, yet there wasn't much he could do to help the family at home. So there's many reasons. And then others come back because they want to find out more about who they are, where they come from. Why are they different from, somebody else in the family?
Sure.
So
We had a very unique opportunity where we went over, my 2 kids are young, they're 11 and 8. And we had a planned trip, but COVID kind of had ruined that. And so last April we went, and it was the first time we took them over. And it was the first time either one of them had met someone on my mother's side of the family. So it was kind of surreal. Like people I had seen, I had met. You don't see them, as often as you would like because of life. But the fact that they got to meet someone and then they would meet them and then look at me. So that person's Nana's cousin. And I was like, yes. And it really was amazing. It was, not to sound totally corny, it was magic, in my eyes anyway. And the fact that a lot of people that we talk to, I mean, we have many division members that go over and they come back and they have amazing stories. One of our past president and a really great guy, John Travers, has a story of he went over and he walked into the B&B and he tells the woman like his background and his family, and he finds out that he has one cousin that lives down the street in one direction and another cousin that lives down the street in the other direction, and that took over his trip. Was just reconnecting. And it was, it's a magical story that I feel like a lot of people get when they go over.
That's very, very typical actually in many ways, because I know we always try to help people as well. And always the up until recently anyway, the best place to find out where somebody might live or their relatives is the post office. So anytime I used to have to trace somebody's family, or I'd always get to the lady in the post office because she always knew where the post went, so she knew who was related to who and whose cousin came home from America and all these type of things. But it's exactly that. People go and all of a sudden they find somebody they're related to. And I also think the people that are in Ireland now, especially the older generation, they just love the first thing they'll say now, what family are you from? Which village now? And who are you connected to? I think just curious by nature. And because so many people went away, I suppose they want to know who you are and where you're coming from. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, let's turn our attention back to Greg.
Well, one of the things that I always find interesting about travel to Ireland generally is nobody ever comes back and says they had a bad time. I mean, anyone can come back from the Caribbean and say, "Oh, it stunk. The weather was terrible." But I mean, you head over to Ireland planning on there being terrible weather, so that eliminates that. You never ever hear a bad story. What you do get is all kinds of advice, and everybody tells you where you have to go, when you have to go, what time you need to be there, where to stay, where to eat, everything else. And I think that can be really overwhelming for people. So, what would you suggest? What are the packages that you offer, and what why would you suggest them to a first time traveler or a family that was traveling? I mean, what advice would you as a professional give instead of the nonstop amateur advice you get from everybody in a group like the Ancient Order of Hibernians, for example?
Well, I think for me, the reason we do custom travel and it's custom groups travel, whatever, is because it's really important for me to get to know the person who's traveling. So for me, I want to know what your interests are and what you because there's a lot of things you don't know you needed to know. There's a lot of places you need to go that you didn't even know that you had to go there. But once we get to, have a conversation about it, that's usually how we start off with anybody, whether it's, a small family group or a larger group, is to find out, what are the things that interest you? I kind of use this analogy of like, you bring me the ingredients and I'll make the cake, right? So if you bring me your ingredients of what you think you like, let us put it together. Now, Greg, you might bring one set of ingredients. Mike could bring the exact same thing, but the two cakes would look different because it depends on what you really want to see. So
Mike's not coming when I finally go.
But it again, that would be kind of how we would do it. And I would just, the one thing I would probably recommend most to people, first time travelers really they have this list. I want to do this and this and this and this. And I want to go here and here and here. And, they take off the list of things they want to see, but they miss what's around it. So it's more about less is more, I think, in every way. And if you get a chance to stay in certain areas that you spend some time, meet the local people, go down the pub, hear the music, go by the guy who's pulling in his fishing boat off the water, go to a local football game, like a Gaelic match, a hurling game. That's the essence, There are beautiful sights, don't get me wrong. The Cliffs of Moher are beautiful. And yes, maybe you want to see that too, but don't miss the real parts of Ireland,
One of the highlights when we were over in April, and it's so silly, but we were sitting in Galway in Monroe's Tavern.
Know it well.
And the music is playing, and my wife are sitting there just relaxing, and the kids have a deck of cards, and they're just sitting there having fun playing cards and we're listening to the music and interacting with people. And it wasn't like a major site. It wasn't like anything crazy. We did do that, but it was moments like that where I was just like, wow, like this. It also didn't help. Like when we got there, we get to Salt Hill and my daughter Maggie, who's 8, looks out on the coast and goes, this just looks like home. And I didn't know if I should take that as good or bad.
I know.
You know, but out of the mouth of babes.
That's a fair compliment to the town of Plymouth, though.
It is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
More than it probably deserves.
So one question I have, and I feel like this has been something that's kind of evolved over time, is where like you said, there are highlights, but I feel like that has changed. You know, the
Absolutely.
North is a much more accessible place now than it might have been 20 years ago when people visited.
Oh, it's to be honest, it's one of my favorite parts of Ireland. Northern Ireland itself is the most unique place. I really feel on the planet, because it's gone through so much. And I've been going up there since I was a child because my aunt lives up there, and I've seen the change I have seen. Even like 15 years ago, people wouldn't really talk to you on the street, or they wouldn't say too much because they didn't know. They were always very cautious. Where they've so much as with the peace, with the Good Friday Agreement and everything becoming more peaceful up there, and the business and the tourism, and the Titanic was built, and boy, there's tons of whiskey distilleries and all those kind of things. Now, when you're walking down the street, the people are so proud that they're bending over themselves falling over themselves to help you and show you and tell you all about their beautiful place. And so I think that is very exciting for the whole island of Ireland. It's just become so accessible, and more people are traveling up there now than they ever have been. And listening to the stories and the history of people that perhaps were imprisoned in the jail or involved in a revolution. We also have a lot of groups that work with us now that do peace and reconciliation programs in Northern Ireland.
Right.
So, and I had a group of judges from Chicago that traveled over just for part of that reason, and were able to bring back some ideas and things that they might use in their own communities. Very different in many ways, obviously, but they learned a lot from sharing stories and hearing about Northern Ireland.
There's a lot of amazing groups up there that do things that you wouldn't expect. So one mission of the Ancient Order of Hibernians is obviously Freedom for All Ireland. That's a major thing. But every year there is a Christmas appeal where throughout all the divisions of the entire country, they raise a formidable amount of money, and they always release the groups that they give this money to. And it could something as simple as like a cross-border boys and girls choir, like just initiatives like that just promote the contributions of both sides of the border and of all shapes and sizes with regards to people, and just really foster, like you said, the benefits of the Good Friday Agreement and everything else. And I think that's amazing that you guys do that too. I mean,
it's so important. And we bring a lot of we bring some sports teams over in the off season. We do a lot of US hockey in Northern Ireland. There's a big tournament called the Friendship Four, which we're very involved in. And one of the things that was very key for me is the logistics, which obviously gets you there. But what's so important to my ethos of everything Irish is bringing something back with you. If you go to a destination, especially somewhere like Ireland, even though these are young athletes focused on their sport, they go to local schools and they interact with the kids, and they do different community initiatives. And that's very important for them to take some of that back with them. And it really did impact some of their lives. They couldn't believe that there's a gate that still closes at nighttime in Northern Ireland, in between the two kind of sides of the spectrum there. Meeting and hearing from people that live in Northern Ireland, or just the history of it, because for them, they've never been in a place like it before. And it's a new Ireland to them. Like, they know Ireland, South Ireland, they know Ireland for Guinness, and they know Ireland for the music and St. Patrick's Day and all of that. So this is something new to them.
For the hockey tournament, I'm on the hook. It's the very first time UMass goes. And didn't they just have their best season ever this year?
Yes.
I might be heading there next year myself, but that was really an amazing for me to hear about. Is I thought that was sort of an oddity that they were they were having hockey in Northern Ireland until I found out just how popular it was and how most of the teams up there actually are named after the American teams and things like that. And I thought it was hilarious that everyone was going over because Jamie and Pat and all those guys went over and they
sure, yeah.
Are you going to Ireland to watch hockey? I mean, go watch a hurling match. What are you doing? But, so that was very interesting. But I mean, I think it's a massive point. Now there's a whole nother corner of the island of Ireland for us to see and enjoy, and adds even more pressure to
You're in
to
big
get
pressure
over.
now.
But hopefully, though, I think historically speaking, people spend some more time learning about that part of the country as well, instead of, like you said, just thinking about the Guinness and the Dublin part. I mean, because it is part of the island, and it's an massively important part of history. I think a lot of people maybe in Irish America haven't really learned that much about either because it's uncomfortable or it's just not as discussed.
Known, yeah.
Right. And one area of the island that we've become more, educated about because the Plymouth County Commissioner's Office have signed a inter-county agreement between Plymouth County and Donegal. And we've been around.
Shout out to our member, County Commissioner Greg Hanley.
Yeah. And they've done a great job with, going over there as delegations and bring delegations over and learning about that part of the island of Ireland. Like we were talking about, I mean, that's one part of the island that I've never been to is like Northern Ireland and Donegal. And that's another place that just, now that it's kind of on the radar, you kind of see what the resources are there and what they have to offer. And then that's another place that I'm sure you guys must.
It's one of my favorite places. My mother's from Donegal. She's from Inishowen Peninsula. So is Declan Houghton, by the way, from Derry, which was why they couldn't believe we were bringing everybody there. What's also very interesting about Donegal, is the amount of business that's on the border there. The Derry, Donegal, like companies that come over. And during COVID, when people kind of, were all scattered about, they're very innovative because on one of the islands, they decided to do this amazing innovation type hub. And so people have moved out to the island and they've the best Wi-Fi, I can tell you that, which is amazing, way out on this island. And it's stunning. You go out and you work there every day and you can either come on or off island, but what a place and now they won't go back. There's no way they're going back to any city after that kind of beautiful place to work with the views like that.
Sure.
And Donegal is also there from the tourist side of things and the tourist board in Ireland. They're really trying to take people away from the heavily saturated areas, like the Cliffs of Moher, maybe like parts of the Killarney and the coastline. They're very heavily visited, which is great. I don't blame them. But there's so many other beautiful parts of Ireland that people haven't seen as well. Donegal is definitely one of them. And kind of North Mayo, Sligo, places like that.
Yeah, I was at the Golden Bridges event, whenever it was a few months ago. Yeah. And they talked about extending like the Wild Atlantic Way and joining it so that, like you said, to kind of get people to keep going. Yeah. And yeah, it's exciting. It's a place that we want to put on. We're going as a group in May, but then me and the family were heading back over in July. And that's a spot that I would like to bring everybody up to and kind of, go on the adventure of the North.
And I know definitely Greg is going there. It's already on his agenda now. We're making out his list of places he's going to visit, right?
It's incredibly overwhelming, and I knew it was going to be. So, but no, I'm looking forward to it, and I do have 2 opportunities to go this year. I was joking earlier. I'm actually going on an incredibly long flight in May, so hopefully that beats the.
Oh, that's not, the flight to Ireland, like I would the first time I told Jack and Maggie, and they were talking about like, oh, we're going to fly all the way over the ocean. I'm like, the same as flying to California. It's really, it really isn't that long of a flight, especially if you can knock out a couple hours of sleep while you're going.
That's it.
We'll see. I've had a few short ones now. So New York and then Washington, the biggie to Hawaii and
Ireland will be nothing. It'll be a piece of cake.
By then we're hoping, knock wood. But no, it's great for you of you to come out and how would people get a hold of Cara Travel?
So our
what's the best way? Is it?
They can contact us at all our information is on caragrouptravel.com and it's Cara, CARA, grouptravel.com. Again, they're The number, if they want it, is 617-639-0273. We are based in Marina Bay in Quincy, above the shanty. If anybody knows that, I'm sure there's lots of people who do.
I'm sure.
Just come on upstairs. We're there.
I may have heard of the establishment.
It's kind of handy, you know. But yeah, we are. We've been there now for 6 years and love the area. We love being by the ocean. So and it's as I said, labor of love. So we've lots of different types of trips, and there's no as you can see Ireland in any possible way, whether you want to take a motorbike tour around, or whether you want to cycle around, or whether you want to get a coach around, or whether you want to walk. It's an adventure no matter what.
The only thing that scares me is the idea, I haven't done it yet, is renting a car. The idea of driving on the other side of the road while also relearning how to drive a stick, which I haven't done for 20 years, and then doing it with the wrong hand, that sounds like an accident waiting to happen.
So my recommendation for that is flying to Shannon, because if you fly to Shannon, coming out of their airport is so much easier than coming out of Dublin. Because then by the time you've gone around the roundabout the wrong way and you figured something else, you figured it out. A few people will beep you, whereas in Dublin it could be totally different.
Oh yeah. The thing that surprised me the last time, and this was the first time we had gone before we traveled just after COVID opened up, was how much traffic there is in Galway now.
Oh,
there's a lot of traffic in that city.
There's traffic. I'm afraid there's traffic everywhere. So that's another reason if you, people come to us and say, look, we're going to rent 2 vans or whatever. We're sort of say forget the vans. Let's get you a driver. Because honestly, by the car rental has got so expensive. And during COVID, a lot of the car rental companies had sold off their fleets. So they're still, at this point, still building them up, and it's really expensive. And the great thing about that, you see, is you can have your few pints and not worry about the next day and not remembering where you're supposed to be going.
Oh, yeah.
That's good.
It does help that.
We actually did that on our trip because of that very reason. The car rental costs were so expensive that we got someone to drive us for the 2 days that we were going out and about. And that was absolutely great. And the driver was great. He's basically a friend at this point.
100%.
And the best part was, so my family originally came from it sounds like ridiculous, but up from the hills of Connemara, up in that area where the fjord is and everything. And
Hillary, Leanon,
He loves to say it just like that all the time too.
And while we were driving around there, the driver we had, Alan, was maybe a little bit too honest. And he said, Michael, he goes, if my GPS broke right now, he goes, I'd have no idea how to get you home. He goes, we are in the middle of nowhere.
I'd say he probably wasn't lying to you there now. Oh my. But that wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world, because somebody would have taken you in, made you the tea, told you, found out who you were, got you back. You might have had to go back on the back of a tractor or something, but it would have worked.
Right. Yeah. But like you said, though, like we had spots in our head that we thought, oh, we definitely want to do this.
Yeah.
And then Alan was like, well, you know what? He goes, we'll take a little bit of a detour. And he brought us to Lahinch, and Lahinch was beautiful.
Yeah.
And that wasn't anywhere near on our radar. It was more of like the spots. And even he said, because we're like, oh, we'll bring the kids to the cliffs to see it. He goes, oh, I got a better spot than that.
I've got a question for you. What did you think of the food when you were in Ireland?
It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing. I've never had, every time we've gone, and like I said, the time before this was right when everything opened up after COVID was over. And so Dublin was kind of a ghost town. But me and my wife, we found fantastic places to eat while we were there.
There's just been an unbelievable renaissance of food in Ireland. They're so foodie. I remember when I started doing tours, you'd go to the hotels, with the groups, and it'd be the same thing, and it'd be overcooked meat and gravy, and you wouldn't have to look under the gravy to see what exactly you were eating. But it's all about organic, farm to table, sustainability. The food is magnificent. I mean, if you just go into even the smallest little local pub in the middle of nowhere has the most delicious soup or brown bread or sandwiches or things like that. So it's really, and they're doing so much to support the communities and the local farmers and the local small businesses. So that's kind of part to, going back to what you said earlier, Greg, supporting the community is important, because if we help each other, it keeps everybody moving along. So
yeah.
What would you say, so after 20 years in the business, what would you say is the biggest change that you've seen? Either in Ireland itself or in the tourism industry?
Boy, that's a good one. A lot has changed. I think I would say the biggest thing I could point out is tourism is very resilient, no question. I mean, when you think of all the things that have happened in the last 20 years, I know in my lifetime in travel, we had 9/11, ash cloud, the swine flu, we had COVID, my goodness, and so many things, but yet people are hungry to travel. They're hungry to learn more, experience. And actually, COVID taught us all something that, life is important to live. It's important to have experiences and experiences with your family and friends. So I think that probably for me is the one thing I would say over 20 years is I'm always amazed at how resilient tourism and travel is. Especially, I'll have to say, the island of Ireland are some of the most resilient people you'll ever come across. They can handle anything.
Now, obviously, most of your travel probably is, to Ireland, but do you guys service other parts across Europe as well?
Yeah, we do. We usually start off with Ireland anyway, because most people come to us from Ireland, but then we do mostly all of Europe, a lot in Ireland, Scotland, UK, but we also do Italy and France, Croatia, and even South Africa.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That would be a
new
neat trip.
one. Yeah. Great golf in South Africa for the golfers out there.
Well, I was going to ask you that because I saw on the website that you do have golf packages. And I feel like I have a younger gentleman that works for me. And that is something that it's an annual thing for him and his friends is a golf trip.
It's very popular in Ireland, obviously with all the links courses that we have.
Sure.
And, we've got a couple of good golfers that come out of Ireland as well,
just a few.
To name a few.
Couple.
And people enjoy it because I think there's the combination of the golf and then the atmosphere going to the pub afterwards, or even and there's a good mixture with the locals. And so people really do enjoy that. And it's easy. It's 5 hours. You could, as you say earlier, you could fly out to California or the West Coast, or you can fly to Ireland and do a little golf trip.
Right.
So, and it's Ireland, Scotland.
I would have thought about the South Africa.
No.
It's an incredibly long flight.
It's a long flight. You need your 2 weeks when you get there. But what really surprised me when I was there is how affordable South Africa is.
Oh.
It's amazing. Amazing. Beautiful country. Beautiful country.
So you just hit on something I was thinking about asking on the way over, and you said 2 weeks. What would you say is the ideal length of time?
I think there's no point in going to Ireland for less than, 8 or 9 days. I mean, that's the minimum you would want to do because you kind of lose a day on the way over, flying over. And then the first day you're kind of a bit wiped. But I mean, if you're able to extend it more for like 10 or 12 days, I think it would be fantastic.
How long are you guys going over there?
For the walk? What a great transition. Greg.
I didn't mean to. I was just...
It's perfect. And we'll keep Sarah
I'm usually
on
a guest on the podcast. This is my first time, actually.
We'll keep Sarah on the show because there's all kinds of aspects of what we have coming up. But just to let everybody know, so what Greg's referring to is come this May, there's a group of the Father John Murphy division that is getting on a plane. And as a fundraiser, we are walking what's known as the National Famine Way in Ireland. It runs from Roscommon, Strokestown, down to Dublin. It's 100 miles. We're going to do it over 6 days. It's daunting. It will be, I want to use the term life-changing because it is going to be endurance-driven. And maybe you can give a little bit of history on the trail itself, Greg, because that in itself is an amazing story.
So if you've never heard of the National Famine Way, let me paint a picture. And it's fairly common to those of us in the AOH because we have a memorial every year to the Brig St. John, survivors of the Brig St. John, which is a famous shipwreck in Cohasset of immigrants during the famine. So we talk a lot about it, and we just memorialized it last fall. But it traces the path taken by 1,490 tenants from the Mahone estate in 1847. So the height of Guatemala. And these families were evicted from their homes and forced to walk to Dublin to board ships for Canada. And many of those ships, of course, were coffin ships. So those tenants never saw Canada or the United States.
Right.
But it's an amazing trip. I'm incredibly jealous of you guys for going.
And for a little bit of background, so they created the trail, and there's different markers along the trail, and each marker is designated with a bronzed pair of children's shoes. So I guess in Strokestown, in one of the buildings, one of the homes, they found this pair of shoes that would have been, belonged to a child that were aged back to 1840s. And we were very lucky. We have a really good relationship with Professor Christine Keneally in Quinnipiac, who she runs what she calls the Islands Hunger Institute out of Quinnipiac University, but then she was also part of the group that created the trail, the National Famine Trail. So as Greg alluded to, last October, we had the 175th anniversary of the Brick St. John tragedy. And as part of that, we invited her down to be a speaker. It was a 2-day event. And she brought with her a pair of the bronze shoes that we actually were able to process into Mass for the memorial Mass. And I was very lucky individual. I got to carry the shoes, and to say that it was emotional would be an understatement.
It was incredibly emotional just to be near them. I actually got to move them at one point. And during one of the talks over at the Cohasset Historical Society, I was adjacent to them. Well, I think it was Dr. Keneally was speaking about them, and it was just so moving. You just to think about it. I mean, your mind just goes in all different directions. It's definitely such a valuable outing, and the Brick St. John's, one of my favorite events of the year.
So it's that
made it even more special, and what you guys are doing is just so poignant. So.
And it's in that vein that we decided, from learning about the famine way from Christine, and learning and her bringing the shoes and just being emotionally touched by what they represent and the significance of them and everything else, we decided to put a group of us together to go and make that walk. And so we're going to be doing that towards the end of May. We're running it as a hunger fundraiser. A big project for the Ancient Order of Hibernians is the Hibernian Hunger Project, where all the divisions across the nation raise money and do things to help people that have food insecurity, which is something that we're really proud of. We've been kind of on the forefront of that. We've had the last 2 years, we've been really, really lucky to team up with Market Basket and hold food drives outside of the Market Basket in North Plymouth. And this last one, we collected enough food based on serving size to feed like 5,000 people.
Amazing.
It really was something. And we were able to, our hall was just filled with boxes and boxes of food. And we were able to deliver those to...
We had to limit the number of volunteers in the hall because of how much food was in there. So
right.
Everyone is banging into each other.
Yeah.
It's an important program, and it's about solidarity really across generations. I mean, from famine to food insecurity today.
Right.
So I mean, these are things that are so important, and it's one of the values we have in the AOH, and just as people. So if you want to support the walk, though, there's still time. It's over 2 months from now, right?
It's April now.
That's true. So whether you want to do whether your donations, your prayers, or just spreading the word, please help us out. Details are in the show notes, so you can check out our website, the Father John Murphy Divisions page. I don't know the web.
On Facebook and Instagram.
Facebook page, yeah.
Facebook and Instagram. So, and then, like Greg said in the show notes, we'll put a link to our Venmo, so people could donate that way, or they can reach out to us and DM us on Facebook and Instagram, and we can work that out. But
incredibly unique and worthwhile effort to address a problem that's worldwide and just getting worse all the time.
Yeah, definitely.
I was just going to say, like, it's, going back history and years, the Irish people themselves, even though they were the ones that, with all the hunger that happened during the famine, but they were also the people that went out to the countries in Africa and all the poorer countries of the world for the reason of just helping and giving back, and with organizations like Concern and all the different places. So I think it's kind of in our DNA to want to help, in particular, hunger being
It's interesting you say that. So 2 weeks ago, I was down in Quinnipiac on an invitation from Professor Keneally, and they did a whole day of the relationship between Ireland and the Choctaw Nation and the donations that have gone back and forth and the connections that are it's unbelievable. Yeah, it's unbelievable. And one thing that Christine always kind of hammers on, which I think the term is it endogenetics? And basically the idea that when a people go through a great trauma, and you could equate this to the Irish and to the Native Americans, indigenous people, that it attaches to your DNA. And she said that they've done studies where they believe that gene passes on for 5 generations after a traumatic event. And she always uses the term that that means anyone who's sitting in this room of Irish descent, you're a child of the famine. And it really is kind of like a haunting comment where it's just it makes sense, but we're also not, we're not unique to that. There's, like we're saying,
so true, yeah.
there's, and maybe that's why as Irish, we have the propensity to just help no matter what type of condition we're in ourselves. And
what's scary when they do those studies around generational trauma is that there's really no endpoint. So they're doing those studies saying that it's in the case of the famine, it's 5 generations out. Well, we are 5 generations out. For all we know, it's 25 generations out. Right. We just haven't been able to study those subsequent generations. So it's it is chilling when she talks about those things, especially coming from an expert like that who just finished telling you.
Yeah.
The story and some of the brutal facts that she builds around them is even harder.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that's a major thing we got going on that happens, approximately a month after the Easter Rising Commemoration. We'll have more information at that commemoration. So if people want to donate online, if they want to bring donations, they're more than happy to do that. Come on April 27th. Also, we were going to have tables available for our sponsors, so you might even see Sarah or someone from Cara Travel Group.
That would be wonderful.
That would be great.
You could do Easter Rising Commemoration, and then you can plan your trip.
I love it.
So we'll kind of pivot from a sad story, which is the famine, to kind of another sad story, but it has some uplifting moments to it. And we're going to take a moment to raise a virtual glass to a place that means a lot to many, which is the best little pub in the world, Paddy Barry's Pub in Quincy. If you've been abreast of recent events surrounding Paddy Barry's, then you know it has been contentious between new property owners and Jerry Hanley, the owner. Unfortunately, that has resulted in the closing of Paddy Barry's. Their last call will be Saturday, April 19th, and their last Sunday session will be the night of Sunday, April 13th. I think Declan is I think he said that he will be playing that at that evening. So
that'd be great.
Yeah.
It was the very first place. I guess I can say this. The very first place I legally saw a session was Paddy Barry's when I was a young man working on Hancock Street in Quincy. And I look back on it. That's my love for traditional Irish music was hatched right there. I could go right after work, really any night of the week at the time, and it was still. I still think about it to this day.
No.
And, some of the early acts.
So, Sarah, you said you've been here for more than 20 years. Did you? Now, the business in Quincy is in Quincy. Did you settle in Quincy when you first came over?
No, I actually went to San Diego first for a few months and then moved to Washington, D.C.
Oh, wow.
For 5 years, then headed to Chicago for about 6 months, and then finally settled in Quincy.
Oh,
yeah.
So sounds like you were on the lam.
Oh, I tell you, but I found the perfect place and I stayed.
Yeah,
and it's funny when you were talking about like Paddy Barry's, boy, there's so many memories, so many stories. Some nights you don't want to remember either. We won't talk about those ones.
Oh, yeah.
But the one thing that always was really special about Paddy Barry's was if you were new to town, if you were Irish and you were new and you knew nobody and you were thinking, God, I need a job. What am I going to do? The first thing people say to you, go to Paddy Barry's. Because you could be guaranteed that somebody in Paddy Barry's would hook you up with a place to stay, find you a job. At least you'd feel welcome. It was a place where you weren't kind of on your own. And that's what I love, again, back to being the Irish connection, is that, you go to a brand new destination, you don't know anybody. But if you went to Paddy Barry's, by God, the time you came out that evening, you'd know 20 people. You probably had a place to stay. You probably had a job. You could even have had a truck. Who knows? That's how it went in Paddy Barry's,
We were talking before we started recording, there's Paddy Barry's, but Jerry also had the Holy Ground a couple doors down. That's where I had my first legal pint. So that held a lot of memories. And it was sad when that got taken away by eminent domain from the city for their planning projects and everything else. And
best
now,
breakfast too. Do you remember the breakfast?
Yeah.
That was free,
Yeah.
Really good.
And my wife's Megan is not originally from the area. She was from upstate New York. And when she was here after we met, it was her first St. Patrick's Day in the area. And she thought on St. Patrick's Day, you went to the Southie Parade. Now, there's nothing wrong with the Southie Parade, but I don't find it a fair representation of what your first St. Patrick's Day in the Boston area should be. And so we got on the Red Line and we went to Quincy, and it was Paddy Barry's. And then we ended up moving to Quincy, and that was our first apartment together. And Paddy Barry's was a staple. I mean, that's like we were saying, it's the first time so many people, so many musicians, the first time I saw them play, it was in Jerry's place, because he's always had great music for as little as the place is and how packed you could be in there and not be able to move.
It was well accepted fact that in the early 90s, there was better music there than there was most of the places in Boston.
Yeah. And it was a time
right there on the South Shore.
We've talked about this on the South Shore now, 7 nights a week, you can find Irish trad music somewhere, just Irish music. And back then that wasn't the case. He was one of the first places.
Certainly not the bigger sessions that they had. I mean, really any night of the week for a while.
Yeah.
It was
Monday night was a great night.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why I remember somebody'd say, Sunday we'd have a great night because Sundays were good. And then, maybe we didn't make it to work on Monday. So then, well, what the hell? You had to go back Monday night anyway. And so the real new Monday was a Tuesday. But every night of the week was great.
Yeah. We're my wife, Megan, and I were already planning on dropping the kids off at the parents so that we can be there that Sunday night. Because I think it really is going to be something.
That'll be something to see.
If there's anything us Irish know how to do, it's to have a send off.
Yes. Absolutely.
And so I think Craic will be mighty.
Craic will be mighty.
On that night.
Without doubt. I can't even imagine the size of the crowd.
No.
I was just thinking that they'll be down the street. There's no question. It's going to be all the way down Hancock Street, I reckon.
Oh, yeah. It'll be one of those things kind of like how they say, like, everybody says that they were there when Ted Williams had his last at bat. Everybody will say that they were there the last night that Paddy's was open. So I really hope whatever Jerry's plans are next. I mean, maybe he doesn't have any plans. I mean, he's been doing it a long time, but, it would be.
Maybe they should recommend they should close off the street. I have a funny feeling it could turn into something bigger than just Paddy Barry's.
Well, they certainly would deserve it. A legendary establishment deserves a legendary send up.
So just a little sláinte to Paddy Barry's, the best little pub in the world. So I think we're going to, So that's it for this week's Craic on the Coast. Big thanks to our guest, Sarah Stanton of Cara Travel Group. And to all you tuning in, keep the spirit of Ireland alive here on the South Shore. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, share it with a friend. And if you got a story to tell or a topic you'd love to hear, reach out by emailing us at craiconthecoast@gmail.com. That's CRAIC on the coast @gmail.com. And you can always follow AOH Plymouth on both Instagram and Facebook to see what we have going on. We hope that everybody will join us at the Easter Rising Commemoration. And then I'm sure we'll have more events coming up as more shows come on. So,
no doubt. And Michael, thanks very much for having me once again. Until next time, keep walking the path, keep telling the stories, and never, never miss a chance to share the Craic.
Slán go foil, friends, and we'll see you on the coast.